We've spent months buried in the Tesla conversion. Wiring, configuring, testing, and slowly getting the whole system to a point where the boat is sailable again. And now that the weather is perfect, it's time to take her out for proper sea trials. Before we can leave the dock though, we have a lot of stuff to prepare. So let's get into the sailing side of things. My name is Gijs, and this is my dad. And this is schooner Tijgerhaai. 3 years ago we started a major rebuild to get her ready for new adventures. And we're sharing the process with you. Subscribe to stay tuned. This isn't our first time sailing since the start of the rebuild. Last Christmas we took the family to one of the Dutch islands. But the sails weren't prepared yet. So we just slapped on whatever sails fit. Leftovers from before the rebuild, plus a few spares. It worked, but it wasn't ideal. The Tijgerhaai is a schooner. The main sail on the main mast is aft. And it's the biggest sail. The main sail we used last winter was from the old rig. Back when the main mast was shorter and the boom was longer. That's why the shape looks a bit off. The sail in front of that is the schooner sail or foresail. Last winter we used a triangular Bermuda sail there as well. It's simple, easy to handle, but it leaves a huge empty gap of air between the masts. Forward of the foremast we can set a staysail, an inner jib and an outer jib. The staysail we used was a quite narrow one that we still had laying around, so we took the opportunity to test it. Normally we'd run the staysail and an outer jib together, both on hydraulic furlers. But the outer jib stay on the bowsprit was empty last winter because the old outer jib didn't fit the new furler. So we used an inner jib with hanks on the extra double stay in between the furling stays. In other words, the whole sail plan worked, but none of it was ideal. It's great to have all those sails as spares because new sails are very expensive, but we have proper replacements for each sail. And we'd actually like to try those out, so we have to get them ready. For the staysail and the outer jib, we decided to reuse the sails that were on the ship 35 years ago. They're still in great shape. Like I mentioned earlier, the outer jib didn't fit the new furler. The original luff band rope, the part that connects the sail to the stay, was too thick for the new aluminum profile. Fortunately, you can buy luff band in different sizes, so we cut the old one off, dug out the old sewing machine and Mom sewed a new one on.
Nee, dat heb ik niet.
We also swapped the small staysail for the original, much bigger one. We don't have a sail lying around that fits the main sail positioned properly. But we do have an enormous jib from another boat that we can't use anywhere. So the plan is to shorten it and see if we can make it work. What we're about to do is pretty close to sacrilege for sailmakers. Cutting a jib into a mainsail. A lot of design calculations go into giving a sail its proper shape. But if we keep the forward edge pointing forward, it should roughly have the right geometry to do the job well enough for now. We cut off the foot of the sail and re-sewed it to the new foot. It's a bit short on the boom, but at least it reaches the top of the mast. We'll see how it behaves once we're sailing. For the schooner sail, we have a sail that leaves less of a gap between the masts using a clever piece of rigging called a wishbone. It's basically a modern interpretation of a gaff. We already made a second-hand wishbone fit on the boat more than a year ago, but we never finished the project. A triangular Bermuda sail is simple. You pull it up with one rope and tension the last bit with a single drum winch. This wishbone sail needs at least 2 ropes to hoist it. And we have just the winch for that. Although it has definitely seen better days. But nothing a bit of a tension can't fix.
Zit zo vast in zijn haast, maar dat kan.
Hij ligt hier weer.
Ja, dat was al. Als je die loslaat, ja. Dan ga ik zo in. Leuk, dat heb ik er wel op laten staan. Die eerste is ietsjes langer dan de andere. Dat zou ik wel zo doen.
En deze. Maar die kan ook straks.
Ah, die kan straks. Die wil ik niet. Millimeter.
The wishbone itself can be trimmed with its own preventer winch, which gives us far more control over the sail than with only a sheet on the boom.
Nou zit er verder op. Toen waren ze tekort.
That's our sail plan sorted for now. You may have noticed the boat is currently a bit stern heavy. Mostly because we've almost finished all the work on the aft, so we've added quite some weight, but we're far from finished in the forward part of the ship. We want that waterline as close to horizontal as we can, so that we're not sailing uphill the whole time. Last year we picked up two antique anchors that we accidentally came across. The same type as one of the anchors we already had on the bow. One of them was in good condition, so we installed it straight away. The other had a completely worn head pin, which is the part that connects the shank to the head. Normally, when an anchor is worn like this, it fails inspection and gets scrapped, because repairing it is too expensive. But these anchors were only made in the Netherlands in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, so they are very hard to find. And it wouldn't be the first anchor we've lost, so we decided to fix this one up last spring. At 160 kilograms, it is the lightest of the three, so it's the best candidate to store in the forecastle as a spare. Cutting the worn head pin with a torch and removing the shank was the easy part. The pin runs all the way through the head, and after a century of oxidation it was of course completely seized. So we started the slow process of heating and cooling the pin to make it expand and contract. Each time we heated the pin until the surface started to flow and a bit of it leaked out. That expansion and contraction slowly broke the oxidation inside the head. After repeating this every day for a week or two, we finally had results. Comparing the part of the pin that acted as the hinge with the part that was trapped inside the head, the wear difference is pretty obvious.
Ja, die kwijtgeraakt zijn, die had gaten in de...
The hole in the shank is also worn, so installing a new pin would still leave a lot of play, and play means faster wear. To prevent that, we're using a bronze bushing. The bushing will take most of the wear and it's the easiest part to replace.
Oké, mooi. Dus hij kan nog een beetje veren. Oh, denk ik. Maar dat weet ik niet zeker. Oké. Oh! Dat bedoel ik. Niet homo. Dat kan een beetje afgedingen is natuurlijk.
Altogether, the anchor is ready for another 100 years, although hopefully most of the time it will just sit in the forecastle.
Niet te hard hoor. Oké, komt ie.
We also moved the spare anchor chain from the belly of the boat to the forecastle to help shift some weight forward to improve the trim. The last finishing touch before we can go is the smaller of our two ship's horns. On the way home from an earlier test trip, we managed to hit an overhanging tree. A big branch came down and snapped the bell clean off the horn. And of course it went overboard, which we only noticed after we got home. It looks pretty sad now, but I found a copper horn on Marketplace for cheap, so we can cannibalize that. It did look bigger in the pictures, but something is better than nothing. And now we can go. Before we reach the sea, we have a 5-hour trip through the Frisian canals, so it's a good opportunity to test the Tesla motor. On a full battery, we managed about 4 hours of electric propulsion, including some waiting time at bridges. With the torque limited to protect the drive belts, our maximum cruising speed is around 4.5 knots, which is perfectly acceptable. Pushing harder would draw more power and reduce the range. For the last stretch we had to start the main diesel engine, which gave us a chance to test the regenerative braking on the Tesla to recharge the batteries. That worked well, but we only had less than an hour before reaching the seaport of Harlingen. While going through the locks, I dropped the clutch a bit too firmly in reverse to moor the boat, and suddenly heard a loud rattling noise from the engine room. It lasted a couple of seconds each time we gave a bit of forward or reverse. Right after the lock, we moored the boat for the night to investigate. It turns out the drive belts were not the weakest link after all. We had focused so much on limiting the Tesla torque to the belt tension that we didn't think twice about the cast aluminum motor mount that came with the Tesla. But it is a very thin piece. Fortunately, it's the easiest and cheapest part to replace. We can make a much stronger steel mount from materials we already have on the yard. Unfortunately, it does mean no more electric drive or testing for the rest of the weekend. Too bad, because it would have been very useful while setting sails, and we had to do a bit of motor sailing to make it in time for dinner on the island of Texel, since we had mostly headwinds on the way there. Thankfully, we have the diesel engine and we still made it in decent time. That's a big benefit of this parallel hybrid setup, where we can choose for either the diesel engine or the Tesla to power the propeller. It has straight away proven itself to be useful. The next day we had much more favorable winds. With the new rig and a bit of current, we got the boat up to 8 knots, which I'm very pleased with. We don't have a drone for those nice sailing shots, but plenty of people took pictures and filmed us from their boats. I've already received these pictures via Facebook, but if anyone else who saw us sail by has photos or videos, I'd love to hear from you at tigersharkbw@gmail.com. Now we're back home again and already working on a much stronger motor mount to get the electric drive back online. But that's for another video. And this is all for now. If you have any questions or remarks, please let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.